Hi, welcome to the Playing with Power podcast, part 2 of issue 1. I'm your host, Mike, and you are?
I am Ben. It's good to be back. How you doing this week, Mike?
Had a sore throat. Was worried that I wouldn't be able to make the deadline, but I just stared at my throat.
The old moneymaker was hurting, huh?
Yeah. My dulcet tones may not have been able to get to you this week, but I did it. I looked at my throat in the mirror and just willed it away.
You powered through it for the fans, of which we had zero.
Damn right. I did it for all zero fans. Did it for all you zeros out there.
Well, we're back on July of 1988 on issue 1, part 2. And we left off on page 55 of Nintendo Power. We're going over the very first Howard and Nestor comic. What would you give it star-wise if you had to rate it between 1 and 5 stars? This particular comic, out of all the Howard and Nestors you've read over the years, how many stars would you give it and why?
I remember the Future comics being a little more helpful than this. This one seemed like he gave, somewhat good advice, but it was already in the magazine. And he even mentions it, the guy's playing, Nestor is playing Zelda. And Howard walks up and says, you should have found levels 8 and 9 by now. Oh, I'm just messing around. I know where they are. I can't find them. I bet you've forgotten where they are. You think you're so smart. Are you kidding? Level 8 is hidden in the second screen up, third from the right, under the tree in the path. Now, what does this mean?
Yeah, Howard's kind of a know-it-all asshole, I gotta say.
I know, he's kind of friggin' smug. And he doesn't even, none of this tells you, well, if you paid attention in the game, they told you to go here. Because, again, Zelda, I don't recall it giving much in-game context. You need outside help to play this. You need, a map that came with the game, which I doubt came with the game, because, Nintendo, why would they be helpful? But, and then he's like, oh, I didn't check that tree. Of course you didn't, because nothing in the game said, there wasn't even a signpost or, you talk about saving the land of Hyrule, I don't even know why you would, because it's all full of monsters and shit. There's no people except for old men in caves. Link is the last generation of an extinct people. All that's left is
I think that
two old men.
He would let Hyrule rot if it wasn't for Zelda, right?
I think he already did. Did you see that first tree you go into? It's just a friggin' desiccated ruin, and there's no people, no village. There's no Cocorico village. Nobody telling you, oh wow, I hope that no one goes into the graveyard. I noticed a loose tombstone on the third one in the second row. Nothing in the game tells you what you need to get around because you're in a dead world. I mean, even if he did reproduce with Zelda, I mean, good. Now your children will have to be inbred to make a third generation. It's anyways,
Zelda, the inbred version.
That explains why that other guy's walking around going, "I am error." Now you know why. He's Link's bastard grandson nephew. So anyway, so Howard then tells him that level 9 is under a rock in the 6th screen from the left on the top. Use the map on page 35 and 6 of this magazine. I should have looked there, Ness replies. So, if he's using the magazine as a reference point, again, you're saying how the game designers failed to provide any in-game help. And 2, even Ness doesn't read Nintendo Power.
Right. Well, here's the thing that is the true rib for me is that Howard Phillips is, quote, the president of the Nintendo Fun Club. So Howard Phillips is actually a real dude, and he was hired on as a spokesperson for Nintendo in the late 80s. And he was actually the editor-in-chief of Nintendo Power for several years during its formative years. So this guy is essentially in charge of writing those pages of the magazine. And then after the fact, in the same magazine, he's like, oh, I bet you didn't read the magazine that I wrote You should go look at it. You know,
No,
and just
like-
kind of like, seriously, dude?
just stroking himself right there.
Right.
But still, tell me about the Nintendo Fun Club, because apparently this was the predecessor to Nintendo Power. But how did it come to be?
Yeah, they had basically they had a fan club, and they only had a few issues that they were started delivering quarterly, starting in the winter of 1987. So they delivered 7 issues total of this Nintendo Fun Club news, and I haven't been able to find any copies of it, so I don't really know how long it was. But it was more like tips and tricks and Nintendo video game news and a couple of comics, and it was sent to the fan club essentially. The Fun Club was the Nintendo fan club, and so once they got through about 2 years of this, they finally decided to make it a real thing, and that morphed into Nintendo Power, where they could start charging subscriptions. So if you actually look at the scans for the front cover of issue 1 of Nintendo Power, there's a variant that says free sample. So the free sample was sent to every member of the Nintendo Fun Club, which was their fan club again. So if you remember, you got the first issue free, get a little taste of the real action, and then you had to subscribe for, I don't know, $20 a year, whatever it was back then, to get into Nintendo Power on a bi-monthly basis.
Well, it's worth it because the magazine is freaking great. If it was mediocre, we'd be doing.
It's required reading for some of these games.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's freaking mandatory for, again, Zelda. Because unless you've got someone who played the game, good luck going into this game blind and letting the game tell you what to do. Now,
Right.
So this was the Howard fan club. Did he have any affiliation with Nintendo itself, or just like, like he was like the most popular fan?
No, I don't know if he had any affiliation with them before he got hired, but he got hired on as a spokesperson, and he was one of the first quote unquote game masters, whatever that means. But he's responsible for the comics. Howard and Nestor, he's responsible for the character Nestor. Nestor was the mascot of Nintendo Power for many years until they swapped him out for Mario in the late 90s.
Yeah, because I remember there was like Howard and Nestor, and then eventually just became Nestor Comics.
Right, because Howard left the company after like 4 years, so...
And they lost the rights to draw his likeness.
I don't know about that. Either that, or they were just like, "Why are we honoring this dude?" You know.
I don't know, because he like friggin' created a magazine and like helped out Ness, because apparently he's stupid and doesn't read the magazine. You got to give props to this guy. He's pulling all the weight around here.
I guess, yeah. At least in the beginning, it was his baby.
Well, that's it for Howard and Ness. Now we've been introduced to the magazine, to this comic. We can just, read them on a comic by comic basis. And we can now move on to classified information. I loved this section. Loved the manila envelope. Loved that everything was just summed up neatly, and they could cram like 3 or 4 games into this, into each page. Now, the first game they cover from Agent 1, whoever that is, was for ice hockey. And this sounds like masturbation advice. Pull the goalie and go for it.
Pulling the goalie and go for it, that's when you want to make a baby.
Yeah. That's when you stop pulling the goalie and you just go for the net. And then they cover... So, did you have any ice hockey experience, whether real or in the game?
No, I only played Blades of Steel for the NES.
Yeah, I wasn't a sports game player either.
Best ice hockey game ever.
And then there's Rad Racer, get on the fast track. But, I got my own... it says here, the final scene has a surprise of its own. Use the tachometer trick to see it. but I never played the game, so I don't care. Now, basically everything on this first page is needless to me. Like, there's Athena, which I never heard of. Have you played Athena?
Never heard of Athena. I had Rad Racer. It's hard.
Now they're talking about finding they're talking about finding a magic mushroom, and when I saw the tiny screen grab from this, I thought for sure this was like some secret level to Super Mario World. But that's all I have to say. Next is Contra. Now this is a prominent game, and they talk about the starting your game with over 30 extra men with the extra life command. Now,
that's the famous Konami code.
Yes, it is the code. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. And I saw this this hilarious painting of the Last Supper, and Jesus and the apostles each have their fingers going like up, up, down, down, left, right, and another guy making a B and an A. And nice. I just thought, if Jesus used that code, like, that's why Jesus was resurrected, because he used that code to continue. Okay, that covers the blasphemy section of classified information.
Nice. Well, a buddy of mine recently asked me a question. He out of the blue, he sent me a text and he said, I made a bet with my girlfriend, who is a few years younger than we are. And he said, oh, do you know the Konami code? And I, of course, just texted her my bet. I knew by heart. And he's like, I win. Of course, every guy our age knows the Konami code. They know it, Yeah. It's just embedded in our brains.
Yep, it's just one of those things. Now, Contra, did you play Contra?
Yeah, I played Contra. I have Contra. It's awesome. It's one of the better games you can play on the Nintendo. With the Konami code for sure.
Well, of course, because if you're going to play, you got to play with power. No, yeah. I never played this game, but I'm loading it onto my DS cart, and hopefully it'll work. And damn right, I'm going to start off with the Konami code, and this is going to be one of those games. I've decided it's time to catch up and get some closure on my past, so I'll be playing these games, and in future magazines I'll be letting you know my progress.
Okay. Well, Contra was another arcade port, and a very, very faithful arcade port, actually. So it's a little bit different. The transference from putting a game in an arcade to being at home, because at home you can't exactly just shove another quarter into the machine to keep going. Whereas that was the whole point of a lot of these, games all this time, was to get quarter eaters. So I think the game developers probably built in these kind of things, going, okay, we know it's really hard because the point is to eat quarters. So here's a code that allows you to get the equivalent of 30 quarters in the game, or whatever it cost. And I think that's why they put some of these cheats in here, just because it was so difficult to try and get through the game on a single, token, essentially.
Do we know if this... I wonder if that code worked on the arcade machine.
I seriously doubt it. And I don't think it's been a staple of every port either. In fact, they had a recent port on Android and iOS devices, and I tried it out, and it was not terribly faithful to the original. They had redone the graphics. I wasn't a big fan of it, and they put in a bunch of what you call it, when you have the freemium games where you have to pay for stuff. So when you die, it's like, oh, pay us money. I'm like, oh, this is back to being an arcade game again. We have to give them more money to keep playing.
They said the arcade machines were dying. They're on your phone now.
I'm like, oh, I thought I played this game almost 30 years ago. Why should I have to pay more?
Next is Gunsmoke. Now, I didn't play this game either, but one thing I noticed is that the word Gunsmoke in this magazine Oh, it has a period between gun and smoke, and that's what it shows on the title screen. Gun.smoke. Now, I never played this game, but apparently it's like a Western, and they tell you how to get a machine gun. So the idea of having a machine gun in the Wild West just sounds like, like if you had a chain gun at the Battle of Helm's Deep, you could be like, I'm the single guy that's going to turn the tide and own this place. Now, have you ever played Gunsmoke?
No, I had no experience with Gunsmoke.
Well,
I wonder if it was one of those Zapper games that I never got.
It might be, but it looks... Well, if you can... No. You can enter in, you press the A button 4 times and the select button. So it looks like it's not a shooter game in the sense of using the Zapper. But... Because I can't imagine, having a machine gun on the Zapper, because... I mean, does that thing even respond if you hold the trigger down? Or does it only respond, with each click?
Yeah, you can't hold the trigger down because the spring unloads basically, so it actually automatically makes you click it again. You can't hold it down. It's not like today's triggers on an Xbox controller or something where you hold it down. It's got some variance to it.
No, so Gunsmoke, you and I will have to play this Gunsmoke to see which one of us can be the best gun.
Okay.
In the podcast. This podcast ain't big enough. This podcast ain't big enough for both of us. Now, next is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Another World Circuit. And it's in the game it even says Another World Circuit. So I like the concept of this, but it's just the same game, but all the guys are shuffled around, which your first opponent will be King Hippo. When you King Hippo in the first quest of Punch-Out! Is I believe he's the first guy in one of the heavyweight bouts. Now, I think this is a missed opportunity because this is just like Zelda second quest, where it's just let's just scramble everything instead of giving them a new experience. Now. I thought it would be friggin' great if you could have punched out aliens.
Punched out aliens?
It's another world.
Oh, makes sense.
Wouldn't it be great to see one of those gray aliens with the big black eyes and the tiny spindly arms, but with big gloves?
Yeah, they have a punching bag for a head, basically.
Yeah, that would be friggin'. I mean, it's called Another World. I would have loved to see different aliens. You could fight a Chewbacca ripoff, an Ewok. It doesn't have to be Star Wars, but it can be just outside of the realm of copyright infringement. You could fight the Great Gazoo, and if you lose, he calls you a dum-dum. There's just this could have benefited from actually living up to the name Another World. But no, you don't fight aliens. You just fight everyone in a different order because apparently. The Other World is a world where a clerical error screws up the ranking system. And next is... Should
we move on past... Do you know the rest of these games? Have you played any of Arachnoid or Ring King or any?
Well, I got just a few things, just one or two things to say about the rest. Arkanoid. I didn't know what it was, but I saw the picture of it. It's Breakout, okay? Just admit it. Now, next is Ring King.
Steve Jobs called. He wants his... Steve Jobs called from the grave. He said he wants his game back.
He created Breakout?
Did he make Breakout? Am I right? I thought so.
I'm going to have to verify that later. Next is Ring King, the poor man's Punch-Out! That's all I have to say. Next is Ninja Kid. Now, I'm looking at the screenshot for Ninja Kid, and the boy seems to be basically a top, because he has no legs. They just come together in the middle to form a point. So I guess he's like a... what are those things that kids play with? Beyblades? You just wind them up and spin them around? That's what this guy is.
A dreidel?
Yeah. Well, not no. Beyblades is like some toy, but essentially he's got the blue and white, like the Hebrew colors. So yeah, you've nailed it. You summed it up. It's the Adventures of Dreidel Boy, and no, he
Dreidel,
was.
Dreidel, I made him out of clay. By Dreidel, Dreidel, Dreidel. I will
with
kick
this
you
game,
like a ninja. I don't know how it
But
goes.
with this game, I won't play. Like, I mean, like if he's
That's
a
right.
Dreidel, if he's a Dreidel, this should have been called Ninju Kid. Then I would have played it.
Huh.
Now,
Yeah.
next game is
Probably would have
Xanac.
turned more of a profit too.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, come on, the people who would have bought it, you know they're rich. Come on. Okay, enough
Isn't
racism.
Xanac a sleep drug?
You know, Xanac. My dog hasn't put me on it yet. From the top, it looks to be like another one of those scrolling shooter playing games with bombs, and you collect power ups, and all of a sudden, it just completely changes the configuration of your plane on the fly. So without having to take it back to base and retrofit it, you now shoot lasers instead of bullets, because that's how planes work. Now that covers classified information. Now is Double Dragon. Hell yes. I played this game. I believed I beat it.
Yep.
And I didn't have this magazine to do it. But the versatility of this game, for just 2 frigging buttons, all you have is the BA button on the controller and the directional pad. And with this, you can punch, headbutt, elbow punch, uppercut, pin attack, kick, over shoulder throw, jump kick, spin kick, low kick, and then hair pulling, because why not throw some hockey moves in there? And now, before we get further into this game, what about you? What are your thoughts on Double Dragon?
Oh, I love Double Dragon. It's a arcade port again, and this is probably one of the more iconic versions of it on the NES. And I having played some of the ports, I would say the music is best on Nintendo. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just nostalgia for me, but it's an amazing game. But I find it funny they list out all the ways you can attack someone. In reality, when you're actually playing, you're like mashing the shit out of those buttons and like praying that
It's all random.
some of the kicks and attacks, and like
yeah.
you can get that spin kick where you stand in the air and you swing your kicks around. You're like, oh yeah, I did it, or you do the one where you grab someone by the head and you throw them. You're like, oh, look what I did, dude. This was always fun to play with another person, and this is one of the few cooperative games that were available early on in Nintendo's life cycle. So this was a big hit for me, as was number 2 and 3 of these. And I honestly wish they would bring back this this franchise more today. I think this has a really rich history.
Oh man, with all the buttons on the modern controllers, I think you'd have like 120 distinct attacks. I mean, look what they were
Right.
able to do with just 2 buttons. This shit will go up exponentially. But oh man, I
100
love this
moves.
game and you can do it all with one hand. But
One thing I learned from reading this article here is that some of the enemies actually have names, and I don't know if they listed them in the game, and they might have, but they keep mentioning I think the whip girl is Linda. Yeah, the girl with the whip is Linda, and they make it seem like when they wrote the article that there's only one Linda. It's like, yeah, you can clearly see even in the screenshots here, there's more than one Linda. They all can't be named Linda. Well. Thanks for joining our gang. Your new name is Linda. Here's a whip.
you're a chick. If you're a chick, you're a Linda.
Yeah.
And when you're a Linda all the way.
That's right. You get a whip, and your name is Linda when you join our gang.
I love the gender equality, that you beat these women just as mercilessly as you do the men. It's like no chivalry when you're a street fighter. Someone comes at you with a whip, you friggin' pull their hair, give them a nose job with your kneecap, and send them on their way.
Oh, that was the best part. It was like if they're whipping you, you kick them, you knock them down, and then you can grab their whip and whip them back.
Give them a taste of their own medicine.
That was probably the best part of this game. You're like,
the,
no way.
the
Because in the game,
retribution.
you know, they just hold on to the whip or like it'd be part of their character or whatever. And like,
Yeah, they fall down
drop it
holding
and
the
you
whip.
can use it. Right.
Oh, the retribution. It's like, screw you. I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine. Whack, whack, whack.
Well, I remember at least for many of the Double Dragons, because of the only having 2 buttons, you didn't have a dedicated jump button. You had to do some you had to mash both A and B at the same time and often press a direction, and you had to time it perfectly. And some of the later missions in the game, and they mention it here a little briefly. They'll show a screenshot where you had to make these difficult platforming jumps. Were always the most frustrating part of the game. Because you'd be going through, you'd be doing good, you know, beating up guys and whatnot, and then you get to this little platforming area and try to jump over the smallest jump and just fall down a hole, and then it became over.
And again, in typical Nintendo Power fashion, the final mission 4, where's the map coverage? Mm-hmm. Nope. They'll tell you it's divided into 3 sections, and there's only 2 scenes on the last map, but you will meet all of Double Dragon's bad characters, including the evil Shadow Boss. This is the ultimate test. Except this is a test with no study materials, because they don't tell you what the hell the Shadow Boss is going to do to you, or how the hell you beat him. So, you know,
just watch Howard Phillips will pop up in a... Just wait. Howard Phillips will pop up in a later comic and be like, you should have read our coverage in issue 23, where I go over this in detail.
And you should also.
But one other thing I did read in here was one of the bosses, one of the mini bosses in this game is called a Bobo, and it's like this huge guy with this gigantic pumpkin head kind of guy. He'll just beat you mercilessly, right? So, and the first time you fight him, there's this handy conveyor belt that if you fall on it, you'll fall off the edge and you'll die, right? So, of course, the strategy is to get a Bobo onto this damn conveyor belt to get him to fall off the edge, and you can win that way, right? And Nintendo Power says, don't take the easy way out. And it says, if you fight them, you can move up a level with the points you earn in battle. And I just remember, I read this, and I was like, wait a minute, there's levels? Like, it's like an RPG? I can level up Billy and Jimmy? Or
I don't remember that.
Billy and Jimmy as the... Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember.
Do you remember?
I just remember punching the shit out of people, pressing random buttons, and just randomizing my way through this game.
Yeah, if there was any leveling up, it was not apparent to the user at all. This is the first I've heard of this.
But you do fight two cavemen called Chintais, and apparently they're just like shirtless hippies.
Oh, of course. And then I like the end. Who is Shadow Boss, and where is Marion, your girlfriend? Although if you're the what is it, 2 brothers, right? If you're their brother, like, do you really care that much?
Yeah, like
I guess you're going for your brother.
Yeah, you're just doing it for your brother, not the girl. Like, screw you. But like, who is the Shadow Boss? You know what? You could have told us who the Shadow Boss is because you're the game magazine. So,
yeah.
Now, moving on to the next game, Gauntlet. Warrior needs food. All I can say is the music in this game was fantastic. And I enjoyed hearing it in MC Chris's The Tussin. You must have heard that song.
Oh, is that where it comes from? Yeah. That's funny. I never made that connection. One of my friends had Gauntlet, and I played it with him for a while. But it's fairly repetitious. I mean, and it's not terribly fun unless you have multiple people to play with. And I think from what I remember this is one of the few games that use the multi-tap that allows you to play with up to 4 people, I believe. Because you have Thor the Warrior, the Valkyrie, the Wizard, and you have the Elf. And, you know, I would always be the Wizard because who doesn't want to shoot at things rather than just walk up and slam them? So
I always liked being
it's another arcade port and a quarter eater.
I always liked being the close quarters guy because almost every Nintendo game that had magic, that shit ran out. So I was just instinctively, you can't run out of an axe as long as you don't throw it. So I'll just stick with the weapon that will still be in that I can still use in 2 minutes time. Not when I'm pinned up against the wall and I'm like, oh shit, I'm out of mana. Like, nope. So I never tried the wizard or anything. Like, Nintendo just instinctively told me anything that should be limited, stay away from it. Just stick with the one thing you'll still have. But
That's
was
good
that
rule.
true? Did you run out of magic as the wizard, or was it just infinite lightning bolts?
I don't think so. I think you just have infinite lightning bolts. It's just like a constant barrage of bullets coming out from them. You can do power ups just like in the fighter plane games, where you can shoot 2 things at a time or 3 things at a time or whatever. But if you get hit once, I think you're dead.
I loved how this screen, like, it wasn't just like most Nintendo games where it's a solid square and you just move to the edge and then it sweeps to another square. I love that. Like, this must have been a technological ordeal on this game, because it seemed like the graphics fairly decent and the music was good, and they managed to have so many moving enemies on the screen, and because this wasn't hard enough, the entire map always moves with you at the center of it. And
Right.
even as a kid, you're not too interested in too much of the technological parts, but even as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, this map is huge and everything's moving and it tilts and turns when you do, and like everything was just like, this was a visual treat and the music was addictive. So even though it could get away with not having much else, because it had challenge, a horde of enemies that makes you feel like a friggin' boss when you take them down in their creature generators, and you just go into that portal and like. Now, did you ever play the later versions of Gauntlet, like in the 2004 or 2001 arcade game? Because I remember when I was in college in 2001, there was a high def, like a graphical, contemporary version of Gauntlet, and pretty much the same, but much better graphics, and you could take it, like, shoot enemies in their castles, and it was a pretty good game. Did you play that, or just the Xbox 360 version, or was it PlayStation?
I think I played
2?
a little bit of both. The arcade one was okay, but I never didn't play it that much. But yeah, I played the Xbox 360 one, and that was okay, but it wasn't anything to write home about. It was just sort of an average game. You could tell they
was a
just
game.
bought the Gauntlet franchise, and they're like, "Oh, we can just slap a Diablo clone in here and be done with it." So that's pretty much all I did. It was a cash in.
Okay, now next is...
So moving on, we've got
Contra.
Right, we've got Contra again, which we've already talked about ad nauseum. And they've got some interesting maps in here. The first level and second level and third level.
Third level, or Zone 3, because apparently this was the precursor to Sonic, where the areas are called zones, and Waterfall, where you have to fight basically the devil xenomorph, because it's the alien from Aliens, but now he's got devil horns and he's red. So I guess when evil xenomorphs die, they go to hell and they're judged by the Xenodevil. And now you have to fight him because apparently you're in alien hell.
Well, what's interesting actually is that you're looking at the screenshot that's underneath where it says Zone 3 Waterfall, but that is actually one of the last bosses in the game. That's not the Waterfall boss. You can see at the very top of the Waterfall map, it's got a boss, and it's sort of got a big head that comes out in the center and then shoots down at you. Now, Waterfall is tough because...
Yeah. More H.R. Geiger.
The screen was
ripoffs.
moving with you as you... Yeah, well, so on the waterfall stage, when you're going up, the screen is moving up with you, but the problem is, even though you might have a step that you know is beneath you, once the screen moves up, if you go off screen, you're dead. So if you fall, you die, even though you know that there's a platform below. It can be super annoying, and it takes a lot of practice to get the map right, just to understand what's going on in order to get through it.
So it's like inverted cartoon physics. Like in the cartoon world,
cartoon physics.
Well, in the cartoon, if you walk off a cliff, as long as you don't look down, as long as you're not aware that you're off the cliff,
mm-hmm.
you will be suspended in the air. Whereas in this case, even though you know there's ground beneath you, if you don't see it, you die. So it's the inversion of the Wile E. Coyote physics.
Right.
And this has been
Makes
Cartoon
sense.
Tech
All
Corner
right.
with Mike. Okay,
That's
so
right.
next is
we've read about
Jeopardy.
Yeah, we've talked about Contra
And,
enough, so let's move on.
Yeah, next is Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Pretty good versions of the game. I recall wanting to play them, getting around to it once or twice. I recall winning a few times. Fun games, but that's all I have to say. What about you?
I actually had the Wheel of Fortune game, I will admit, and recently sold it off at a garage sale. I think I got a couple bucks for it. It was an okay game, but the problem is that all of the quizzes and questions are so dated now because all based around when the game was made. So if you want to go back and play it now, you have to know your pop culture references and phrases and whatnot that were popular during that time.
And that's it for the primetime game show games. Okay, moving on to video shorts. The Now Playing section of Nintendo Power features every single new release video game now available or coming by the next issue for your NES. You've been reading our in-depth review of Double Dragon, Contra, Gauntlet, Wheel of Fortune, and Jeopardy. In-depth? Really? You gave a page to Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. Although considering the game material, I guess that's fair. Now it says, now you can look forward to more great games in the video shorts section of the magazine. Now, how do you put video shorts? You've been showing screen captures in the magazine because it's a print magazine. But now it's video shorts, and now you're going to show screenshots of more game footage? Anyway, here you can take a peek at a long list of titles chosen for challenge, fun, and excitement by our Nintendo Power magazine's editor. These games are the hottest out there. You'll see a lot of your favorite arcade video games in the reviews, as well as other hot favorites, including spy, fantasy, and science fiction. Now, the first game is Legendary Wings. I don't recall playing this game or really knowing anything about it, but it's a Capcom game, so it probably isn't that bad. Although the first screenshot is you being engulfed by this statue face. And the next issue seems to show like you walking along this wall of ribs. So apparently you're swallowed by this Sphinx god. And instead of being a temple, he actually has a physical body that you can somehow survive inside. Have you played Legendary Wings?
No, but looking at the screenshots, it reminds me a lot of the Silver Surfer game, which is horrendously difficult, but it switches from going a side-scrolling shooter to a top-down shooter in different games. And that's exactly what this looks like, so I wonder if it was built based on the same engine.
It's made by Capcom, so I think it's more merciful to the player, since they like to make challenging games, but not broken and impossible games. Like, it's like Mega Man. Like Mega Man 2, those games are tough. But with enough practice, you can beat them. Next is Iron Tank, another typical flying over, collect the power up, and all of a sudden your plane can now shoot lasers and drop bombs and shit. Anything particular about this game from your experience?
You're not a plane, first off, you're a tank. That's the main difference.
Oh.
It's the same kind of concept. It plays a lot like Jackal, from what I remember, except you don't really get to go back. You're just going forward, is my understanding. So it's all right.
So it's
not bad.
It's another... Yeah, the thing about those games, like, they're not particularly bad. They're just all the same. Because, Why be original? That's Nintendo's job. This is just SNK Studios. Next is Gunsmoke.
So speaking of which, yeah, Gunsmoke. So you were right. It's not. I don't think it is a Zapper game, and it looks like it's more like Commando, where you're kind of going same kind of thing. You're going scrolling from top down, and you got to shoot all around you at baddies.
It says once you have a wanted poster, you can have a big showdown with the local bad guy. So now this doesn't make sense. Why would the bad guys be trying to collect bounties? Wouldn't like bounty hunters or sheriffs be coming after you if you wanted? Like, wouldn't the bad guy be wanting to have you in his gang since you've made a reputation for yourself? If you're the hero, how do you get on the wanted poster? Unless you're going through a super corrupt town where the bad guys are the sheriffs. No thoughts?
Maybe you have to drive out corruption.
I know, it's like the Western version of Walking Tall, and instead of a 2x4, you've got a shotgun or a machine gun or a magnum or a smart bomb.
Right.
Because, yeah, this is something you can buy with your points or dollars or doubloons or silver or whatever you get for currency in this game. You can buy a freaking smart bomb.
Your pieces of 8.
Next is Rambo. I can't imagine why did they make such a violent, post-traumatic stress-induced, psychotic war vet who really should have gotten counseling and all the help that our veterans don't get. But no, like the kids think, no, he's a shirtless Stallone with a machine gun. Kids love playing violent assholes. And
this little bit on Rambo.
The screenshot here, the screenshot for Sylvester Stallone, he looks like a screenshot from The Simpsons because his skin is like yellow instead of, salmon or like pink colored.
I mean, this little bit about Rambo, it kind of ticks me off a little bit because it says, here's a video game based on the all-time movie hit, quote, Rambo, unquote. Yeah, there's no movie called Rambo. It's called First Blood. And that's what you want to put on a kid's video game? Apparently not. So the story in here is based off of Rambo 2, which is the one where he goes back to Vietnam to rescue his POWs and all that, right? So I've actually played this game, and this game is absolute garbage. It is just awful.
Rambo
like you spend the first couple of levels just trying to talk to your sergeant and make it in before you actually get anywhere, and you have this little knife. You don't even have like a machine gun like the picture thinks you get.
Oh my gosh! Now, wasn't Rambo 2 called First Blood? Because I recall the first Rambo wasn't the first Rambo called Rambo. Rambo 2 was called First Blood.
No, I think it was called First Blood Part 2. Is what Rambo 2 was.
Yeah, so right, because I went with the more make-sensing version instead of like First Blood 2 Rambo. But the first movie is called First Blood. The
second one is called, let me find it here. I think it's called First Blood Part 2. Or it's called Rambo, and then like the subtitle is First Blood Part 2.
Okay,
anyways,
next is Dragon.
So moving on, we have
Dragon
your
Power.
favorite, Dragon Power.
Which is, this exciting adventure game is based off the classic Chinese story Si Hu Chi, Monkey, which is not true because it was based off the classic Chinese story Journey to the West, not Monkey. Although it did feature a monkey king warrior thing, but the story was called Journey to the West. And this it says there are lots of kung fu-like movements. What the hell? Like, say kung fu moves, okay? What the hell are movements? That's what you have after eating too much fiber. Now, you begin deep in the mountains.
I guess they didn't want to nail it down and call it kung fu.
Yeah, because they already had a kung fu game. But why not call it Dragon Ball? Because it has Goku, the little orange gi wearing kid with the monkey tail from the amazing cartoon series Dragon Ball. which I enjoyed. And it's even got a picture of Shenron on the cover saying, "I'll make all your dreams come true, Goku." Now, why call it Dragon Power when it's based off Dragon Ball? Call it Dragon Ball so that we can tie it in with the amazing cartoon that we're watching as kids. You know, it's called marketing, franchise tie-in. Now, did you ever watch Dragon Ball?
Yeah, it just seems like one of those moves where locally, you know, there may not have been an impact of Dragon Ball, so they didn't know what to call it, you know, stateside. So it's called Dragon Ball. Kids not gonna know what that is. I don't know. I like Dragon Power better. That sounds better. Let's rename it. And let's just rewrite the story too while we're at it.
But the show is out, right? The show was out. The cartoon. I remember watching a cartoon called Dragon Ball with Goku and Bulma and Krillin, and it was a fun game. It was fun. Like if I knew that there was a game based off the cartoon, that would have gotten me to rent this thing. You see Dragon Power, it's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I don't know if they aired Dragon Ball in the States in the 80s or not.
Yeah, I remember watching it in Canada at least, but I don't recall exactly how old I was. If this game came out before the cartoon, like that's just a misstep on their part. Like just wait for the cartoon to come out, wait for all the kids to love it, and then put out the game. But now they have Bulma's name in this game is changed to Nora. And again, I don't know why. Like, it's just like, let's make this game not like Dragon Ball enough so that people won't play it. So I have no idea if this game's good or not. But it's one of the games that I'm going to check out just to see if it like makes a decent Dragon Ball game. Now, next is Metal Gear. Not Metal Gear Solid, just the original Metal Gear. Now, did you play this game? Because once again, I did not.
Yeah, I have this game, and my mom got it for me based on the recommendation of the video game store employee or the guy that worked at the Toys R Us or whatever, saying, "Oh, it's a great game." This game pissed me off so many times, and everyone goes back and says, "Oh, I'm so nostalgic. The original Metal Gear game was amazing. It was groundbreaking." And even in the screenshots here, you see like a hostage, and you see, you know, Snake going up against a tank. And all this kind of crazy action stuff.
You're green when you're rescuing people, but when you turn into a tank, you turn into Purple Hulk, and now you're fighting a tank.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but the reality for me was like I could barely even get past the first few screens because if you alert the guards at all, and there's like different parts where like they're smoking and not, so you got to like walk past them carefully. And you just run into trouble very quickly, and you don't have a gun when you start. You have a knife, so you have to punch them, and there's dogs. So it's very easy to get killed within the first few screens, and that's what always happened to me. So I barely got anywhere in this game, and I suspect you had to like play it a million times over just to memorize exactly what character's going to do, run past, without alerting alarms. And I'm just not very good at stealth games in general. I mean, are you any good at stealth games, or are you more of like a run in and just spray everything with fire?
Yeah. I'm the guy that will kick in the door and go, I am death, destroyer of worlds. Look upon my biceps and guns in despair. And I will just lay waste to everything around because, I like the fantasy of being an unkillable badass. But I remember playing Metal Gear Solid for the Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, for the PlayStation. Never got around to playing the PlayStation 1 version. I played the PlayStation 2 sequel, and I enjoyed it, sneaking around in the box, not alerting guards, trying to stay out of their line of sight. I like the idea, and I can play some stealth games, but I always feel it when it's like, you've been detected by guards. Okay, well, plan B, time to kill everybody. Oh, wait, I only have a pistol and maybe a knife. Oh, shit.
Right.
So this is a game I'll probably have to play.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the whole game.
Bionic Commando is next. I tried playing this game, and the controls seemed a little awkward and weird, and I just couldn't really get... I didn't get the hang of it enough. How about you?
Well, I actually think they go over Bionic Commando in the next issue of Nintendo Power, so we may want to hold off about talking about it too much.
All right. Okay, next is City Connection.
So let's move on to City Connection.
Yep, driving in big cities, and you heave oil cans at the authorities. So basically, I guess you're an asshole in this game because the authorities are trying to like stop you from driving recklessly, and you have to run them off the road like they're Toonces the driving cat, and just make them go off cliffs and flaming fireballs and shit. And one of the screenshots says, "Watch out for that cat." Now the cat's as big as your car. So, are you sure it's not a tiger?
It's a freaking huge cat.
Next is Star Force. This is a space-age galactic battle more exciting than Star Wars. Really? Your boss is called Goddess, which sounds like the wife of the leader of the Power Rangers. Now, it says here in the last sentence, your name is Final Star, and only you can restore the peace that was lost 2,000 years ago. First off, you got shitty parents if they're going to call you Final. And what makes you restore the peace that was lost 2,000 years ago? I mean, in all those 2,000 years, no one else can get weapons and shoot things.
If you as a parent name your kid Final, that means that you're like driving the way to the urologist to get your tubes tied at that very moment.
I was thinking more.
I'm making sure
depressed.
That we're having no more children after this. You're the last one. The last of the line, son.
This is final.
Right.
Next is Freedom Force. Now you have to shoot terrorists on an airplane. Didn't that happen in real life? Terrorists were shot. Terrorists tried to take an airplane and they were gunned down. I think it was the Mossad that took them down. And but I love in this game, like the one thing I have to say about this game is, remember when terrorists were white? The 80s. Those were the days. And
this might have been the Iran, when they took all those people hostage on the plane, right, in the late 70s. I think this is based on.
Yeah,
I like how they call them the unknown guerrillas, though. And my favorite part.
You don't want to get political.
My favorite part of this is the name of the. My favorite part of this is the names of the good guys: Rad Rex or Manic Jackson.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Manic Jackson! If it was Maniac Jackson, you'd think, okay, he's a bit of an unhinged guy, but Manic Jackson. Now you just think of this guy who's energetic beyond his will, and he's sad and he just needs medication to level out his mind. He needs some Abilify.
He's a brother with Action Jackson.
Both are very tough cookies who have the firepower and the moves to make these gorilla nutcases move out. Are you evicting them? It's like, dude, you're not paying your rent. Now, either pack up your shit and go, or I have to call Manic Jackson.
Right.
Oh, man. You don't want to hit these innocent victims with your zapper.
All right, enough
Only
Freedom
the unknown
Force.
gorillas. Next is Packwatch. I didn't have much to say about this. How about you?
No, it's just a clear advertisement of, hey, we're Nintendo. Here's all the games we have for our platform. Go take a look at them, and just lists out a ton of games. But let's move on to the Players Bowl contest, which is a staple of every single Nintendo Power issue, where if you send in the survey, essentially, nowadays it's like, oh, get a $25 iTunes gift card, but back then it was like, mail us in, and you have the chance of winning one of these great prizes. One of 50 exclusive Nintendo Power jerseys. One of 10 copies of Super Mario Brothers 2. And then the grand prize, there's one grand prize, is 10 games of your choice. Any 10 games in our library. And it's got cheesy pictures of Howard Phillips without his bow tie on here in the sweatshirt or jersey, whatever it is.
That's the guy holding the TV?
Yeah, I think so.
Holding the,
that's him.
That's how. Wow. I love, you got to give Nintendo Power.
Pretty sure that's Howard Phillips.
They got the kick-ass prizes. I mean, grand prize, 10 friggin' games. just getting one game, it's like it's got to be your birthday or Christmas to get a friggin' video game. But here you can get like 10 of them. Like I'm covered until I hit puberty. Now, the player's polls. It invites the listeners to reply with these questions. Now, interestingly enough, it still has wrong color Mario with the blue hat. And it says, how did you like the premiere issue on Nintendo Power? Do you plan on subscribing? How many game packs do you own? How long have you owned your NES? Which review did you like the most? What 2 games would you like to see reviewed in a future episode of Nintendo Power? What 3 games are you planning to purchase next? And please indicate in order of preference your 5 games. Now, the benefactor of this magazine filled in the card, and I personally wish to thank Jeremy Salzman of New Prague, Minnesota, who was 13 at the time, for keeping this magazine and not sending in the card. I don't know why he filled it out if he didn't want to rip it out and send it in. I guess he had a photocopier on hand or something. And the games he wants covered are Castlevania and Kid Icarus. Good choices. And he plans to purchase Kid Icarus, Legend of Zelda 2, and Metroid. You know, this kid's on the ball. And his 5 favorite games are, in order, Zelda 2, Zelda 1, Kid Icarus, Karnov, which I never heard of. Have you?
Oh yeah, I know Karnov.
I guess it's the next Rygar. And Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And next, any thoughts on this before we move on to the NES Journal?
No, let's move on.
All right, NES Journal. Wire into the NES pipeline on what's happening around the world. Now, this talks about world news, and what they're covering is the release of Dragon Quest III in Japan. As a representative of Enix expecting sales of 5 million. Now, what they don't mention here, but I did find out later, is the Japanese government, or I think it's called the Diet, because I don't want to call them the Diet because that sounds silly. They had to pass a law that specifically Dragon Quest games have to be released at the end of the week instead of the middle of the week with the rest of the video games, because this game alone caused people to call in sick because they just couldn't play this game fast enough. This game was tops. And in here it shows a photo of Japanese people lining up to get this game, and to think, it says, ninjas and kung fu masters are no longer heroes to Japanese players, since now they're being replaced by warriors and sorcerers who bravely confront dragons with their sword and shield. Now, I played Dragon Quest 1. Don't remember too much of Dragon Quest 2, but it's on my list. And I remember in the original Dragon Warrior, it was weird to call it Dragon Warrior.
Yeah,
because I recall only one dragon you fight, the green dragon, and you have to beat him to save the princess in the dark cave. Now, the funny thing about that is that you don't even have to save the princess. You can just plow through the cave, ignore the green dragon, and just defeat the dragon lord and head back to the king and go, save the kingdom. And he's basically like, what about my kid? Shit, I knew I forgot something. And then you go out to do that. But that's like end credit stuff. Like, they only imply that you went out to rescue the princess after. But I love that they give you that option of just forget her. Let the princess rot.
The best option, I guess, in the game. So how did the numbering line up to localized versions? So we had Dragon Warrior instead of Dragon Quest. Now, did it line up perfectly? So with Dragon Quest 1 is Dragon Warrior 1 and all that, or did they screw it up like the Final Fantasy series?
We did get Dragon Quest 2, and they mentioned Dragon Quest 3 coming out in Japan. I think it got a translation. Maybe not. I don't recall hearing anything about Dragon Quest 4, or Dragon Quest 5. Really, I didn't hear much about Dragon Warrior until I think it was 7, or was it 6, that came out for the PlayStation. And then Dragon Quest 8 came out for the PlayStation 2. And then 9 came out for the DS. And I think 10 is a multiplayer game. And I have nothing to comment about that. Now, Next is Konami awards Top Gun title. For the 4 finalists launched their mighty F-14 fighters to battle for the coveted Top Gun title in the finale to Konami's Top Gun video game shootout contest. Now, without Nintendo Power magazine at the time, I have to wonder, how did the news of this magazine get out? Like, how did the news of this contest get out? I have no idea, but when the dust cleared, judges tallied up the score and awarded Devin Devil White of Minneapolis, Minnesota. What the frick is up with gamers in Minnesota? The Top Gun title and first place prize of $5,000. This is incredible. You get $5,000 for beating a video game. I mean, this was in the 80s. $5,000, you could like save up for a friggin' car. And to continue showing how friggin' awesome it is, he gets to have his picture taken next to an actual friggin' fighter plane. Like, I don't know who this Devin White of Minneapolis is, but if our listeners can find out who this guy is, I would love to contact him just to find out, like, did you get to sit in the plane? What'd you do with the money? Like, I'd like to find out I'd like to hear from this guy, like catch up with him and, see, like, has your life continued to be awesome, or was this like the peak? Like, I hope he's not like some junkie in like Jersey right now. Sorry man, I spent that $5,000 and I got my first taste of cocaine and it all pretty much went downhill from there. That goddamn game ruined my life. Like, I hope that this led to more awesome things if we ever get to speak with this guy. And
well, I think the early video game contests, before we had the internet and all that, and before it was even in this magazine, how they would do it is if you were playing an arcade regularly, they would have contests and stuff like that in the actual arcade. And then once in a while, you might have some kind of event organizer contact multiple arcades and have a regional competition, and very rarely you'd have a national competition. Things of that nature, and I think that's how those came about back in those days.
Okay, before we move on, we talked before about how Nintendo was not very helpful with the first quest of Zelda. Well, right above, it has Zelda Tips and Tactics. Here's just what you need to conquer the evil and mysterious Ganon. You'll discover shortcuts, find out how to get information. I don't think there's much information in this game, but if it's buried enough, thanks for finally telling me how to get it. And discover clever ways to conquer enemies and save the princess. You can order this booklet for $4.95 by giving your Visa MasterCard number to our customer service departments. Now, you gotta realize your clients are kids, pretty much. Like, I don't recall too many grown-ups or too many teenagers in the 80s playing this, because I was just like an 8-year-old kid. But then again, I didn't hang out with too many kids, too many older kids or kids in general. So still, like, that they're telling you to use your Visa instead of like ask your parents. It's like they must have, like, well, this was just a surprise to me. I thought this was just for kids. But then they have like a kid getting $5,000.
Well, they probably want to get their parents go ask your mom or dad's permission in order to call this number and use our credit card. I mean, they have the same thing at the beginning of the magazine, the player tip line, all that kind of stuff. I mean, kid doesn't have access to be able to get the credit card unless they jack it from mom or dad. Yeah, I just need to go pay for some bills, Dad, for you. Oh, thanks, son. Meanwhile, they're dialing up Nintendo. Yeah, give me the Zelda Tips and Tactics booklet, please.
Okay, now, for some reason, Nintendo Power has decided in this next section to cover movies. Not even video game movies, just movies like Pee-wee's Big Top, 8 Men Out, and Vibes. And they even mention, 8 Men Out features Charlie Sheen, Platoon. Now, again, this was like a magazine. Kids are reading this. Why are you mentioning Platoon? Well, there was a video game called Platoon, but did you ever see the movie Platoon? Should that really be a video game for kids? I don't know, but because I didn't play Platoon. But here is a real gem for me. A nice note for us a nice strong note for us to come to the close on is Celebrity Profile, Kirk and Candace Cameron. These two celebrity siblings pop up on your TV screen more often than Mario and Luigi. Kirk and Candace appear weekly on two of the most popular shows on primetime, Growing Pains and Full House. Now, Candace Cameron, then 12-year-old, being 12-year-old at the time, lovable DJ Tanner from Full House, said that she has rescued the Mushroom Princess, who we established is not Peach, since this one is brunette, but hasn't been able to free Princess Zelda. Now, I think this is her just keeping the blonde count down to 1. Her. Okay, I see her game. You can hang out with brunettes, but as long as she's the blonde on scene, the only blonde, she's fine. Now, Kirk, on the other hand, is having problems with the amoeboids in Gradius, and he thinks he will have to place a call to game counselors soon. Well, being a friggin' TV star, I think he can afford the hotline. But, I think this was before he had to get all of his answers through prayer.
Yeah, you could say that Gradius left him behind, as it were.
And it says the NES is very popular on the set of Full House, but she doesn't get too much time on it because she's busy working. Now, the Cameron siblings enjoy Super Mario Bros., Legend of Zelda, Gradius, Pinball, and Rygar. Damn it, what's up with Rygar? I mean, how could this game have slipped me by completely? I really need to try this game. I'm seeing too much of it in this issue. And finally,
you need to get on with that disc armor.
So, say no to drugs and say yes to Nintendo. And the mailbox, rounding out letters to, I guess the letters were to the Nintendo fan club, and then they just got transferred to Nintendo Power. And P. Durr asks if Howard Phillips has close to 300 games for the NES. Could you send us some of the names of the games he has? Are they ever going to be made public? And could you tell me the exact name of the theme song to Spy Hunter? Now, they pretty much tell this guy to slow his roll by saying, be patient, there's already over 100 games for the NES. And the Best of What Howard reviews will make it to the stores. By the way, the music from Spy Hunter is the theme from Peter Gunn.
That's as made famous by the Blues Brothers.
Now, did you see any notes, any mailbox letters of note?
Yeah, I like this one in particular. It's a little odd, and I'm going to flip forward to the other section that involves letters because it's related. I don't know why they have two sections in the first issue. I think they combine them later. But anyways, this one says, my friends and I have a club called the Videoizers. Here are a few suggestions for some other clubs. Try saving up weekly for a new tape every month. So far, our club has 13 tapes. In our club, we save a few dollars a week for extra money to call the Nintendo hotline. A friendly game counselor kindly helps us out when we have trouble on something. So I just want to be like, what the hell are they telling Nintendo about their tape club? Is this like VHS videotape, or are they like taping the Nintendo hotline phone calls illegally and doing a wiretap? Like, what's going on here?
That would be the Audioizers. This is a different group. This is the Videoizers. So I guess they would record. Either they're buying blank tapes to record their gameplay footage, or it has nothing to do with video games at all, and they just wanted to tell everybody, hey, can you mention that we have this club? Because we just hang out and buy home movies, right, or like home videos. I have no idea.
We're in, the Videoizers from Maiden, Massachusetts. Go ahead and look them up if they're still around. So the other letter I wanted to read is another club-related letter, and I wasn't aware that there were so many clubs back in those days that did this kind of thing. So this one says, our club is called the NES Masters. We know right off who our power player is. His name is Ace Ebb. He writes to Nintendo all the time, telling them his accomplishments on games. His hobbies are playing Nintendo games, period. He has no pets. Instead, he plays Nintendo all day. He beat Metroid in 3 days, Tyson in 5, saved Zelda in 5, and finished Super Mario Brothers in 5 from Chicago, Illinois. And it's got a picture of this kid, Ace Ebb,
and looking
next to
smug
a lamp with two
looking
owls.
smug as ever. And looking like a smug.
Yeah, he's folding his arms. He's got his hands under his armpits. He's got his head cocked sideways. I mean, he just looks like the kind of one kid you want to slap. I'll be honest with you.
He's letting you know that he ain't messing around. This is a power player right here.
Well, he's also letting you know that his parents don't give a shit about him, and they're letting him play Nintendo all freaking day.
instead of bonding with him, or like trying to get him to like play with other kids, it's like, what about a pet? What about interacting with other living things? Nope, Nintendo. And
nope, Nintendo. Yeah, I don't know. You should be bragging about that.
And that's that was from the Video Spotlight, which I guess is different from the mailbox. These players write in to tell us about their video prowess. How is that different than the mailbag?
I think this is the Video Spotlight is when they brag about how they did. They're like, "Hey, here's how good I am at this game," whereas the other one specifically just questions or comments.
Okay, so next is the top 30. I remember skipping to this section a lot whenever I got bored with the contents of the magazine, just to see what games are coming out or what games are popular enough to warrant my notice. Now, topping number 1, The Legend of Zelda prides itself at topping all other games. Were you able to go all the way? Its sequel, Adventure of Link, is coming soon. Next is Punch-Out! Third place is Metroid. Now it says here, it has stubbornly held on to its popularity. This is the first issue, okay? How can it stubbornly hold on to anything where it's making its debut? Number 4 is Mario Brothers.
They must be referring the Fun Club. Yeah.
Number 5 is Kid Icarus. And that seems to be it for the games.
Well, you're not taking notice. It says top 30, and guess what number 30 is? That's right. Oh. It's Rygar. Now, I take issue with this.
Damn you, Rygar.
I take issue with this because it has a number of points next to the name, and it's actually tied with Ring King. But Ring King somehow got number 29 spot, so that's bullshit. Just telling you right now, Rygar should be way higher up on that list.
This is some alphabetical preference. This is like intolerance against the letter Y.
Well, they should have tied it at 29 then. Just saying.
Now, they mentioned the original Mario Brothers as 25. That's cool. In Ghosts and Goblins, friggin' unrepentant, difficult bastard game, Ghosts and Goblins, is 23. And somehow Ikari Warriors is 19. I hope the nerd.
I don't know why you didn't like that game. It was okay.
I hope the nerd doesn't listen to this podcast, because I think he'd have something to say about the Ikari Warriors. How could that game be better?
He's got a shtick. He's got to maintain Rygar. That he doesn't like those games, you know?
How could that game be better than Rygar? Or Gradius? So, this seems to bring our issue and our episode to a close. Coming out next month for September and October of 1988 will be Simon's Quest, Bio-Billy, and you were right, Bionic Commando. Get all the action, get all the inside action, and a super poster in this hot release. I can't wait to see what amazing centerfolds we're going to get this time. And it says, Howard Phillips, we'll see us in September.
Can't wait for a hot release.
Look, hold it in until the end of the show. No, it says, see you in September, Howard Phillips. P.S. I'm working real hard on Zelda 2. Look for it. It's going to be great. So, our first issue is done and in the can. Hopefully the next future episodes will be shorter now that we're no longer introducing the categories unless new ones show up. So...
Mike, how can they get a hold of us before next time?
Well, we're available on Facebook at Playing with Power Podcast. We have a Twitter, Get the Power 88.
Okay, and we're also available, of course, on iTunes now. So
yes, so please rate and review us.
Send us in any comments, questions, suggestions you have.
Yeah, if you have any issues or anything that you want to leave comments on, leave them at our Gmail, which you can find on our Facebook page, or a post on the Facebook page or the Twitter. And when the issue comes up, we'll be sure to share them.
So I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike.
And now you're playing with Power.
Nintendo Entertainment System. Now,